We are sisters. We're best friends. We're dining partners, and our favorite seat in the house, we are
barstool companions.
And I know you're going to be looking at us for the next 20, 30 minutes, so let's just get this clear. She's older.
She always does that to me.
I don't know. Just got to get that out of the way. We're both getting up there, but she's got 2 years on me.
And when we were growing up, I mean, being 2 years apart, of course, we shared a room. We were close, but we really didn't like hanging out together all that much. She had her set of friends, I had my set of friends.
Yeah, we loved each other, but just really, didn't like each other that much. As sisters, particularly in our teenage years, teenagers can be that way. But when we got out of college, Barbara moved to Washington, D.C., and I followed. I went to Washington, D.C.
And, of course, when she followed me, she started working for the CIA.
Ah, yes.
And in this case, we are not talking about the Culinary Institute of America.
No, it's a dark, deep secret. But little did I know when I joined that CIA that I'd end up in food and wine. But here we are many, many years later. But I had gotten to Washington, and of course, I'm calling my big sister and saying, let's get together. She's always helping me.
Or butting in.
Yeah. Yeah, that too. I said, let's do something. So, of course, I left her several voicemail messages and didn't hear back. And finally, she acquiesced a couple weeks later and said, okay, let's go into Georgetown and go shopping.
Which we did. And by the time we finished shopping, our feet were killing us. Not to mention, we were very thirsty. So what are two thirsty girls to do but head to the nearest bar? And it turned out to be Clyde's in Georgetown.
So we belly up to the bar and, of course, order a Chablis, which was the wine at the time, the only white wine practically available. And we realized after we had the glass of wine talking, we realized, boy, we were having a good time.
So that was enough excuse to order another glass of Chablis. And by the time we got to the bottom of that glass, we turned to each other and almost simultaneously we said, I like you. And that was really the beginning of what would become the Saucy Sisters. Because from there we moved around the country, actually followed each other around the country.
Had different careers, but we ended up in Nashville several years later without jobs. And it was at that point when we said, boy, what do we really like to do? We love food, we love cooking, we love entertaining, love wine, we love going to restaurants, so let's do something along those lines.
So we really followed our passion, and we decided to have a radio show. Not that we had any prior experience, mind you.
No, it just sounded like a good idea, and God knows we love to talk about it, so we can talk about it on air. And anyway, we put together a proposal, and within 2 weeks, we had our own radio show, and continued that for 10 years. And we interviewed, food people, wine people, anything food related from around the world.
And at one point, one of our very frequent guests said to us, and this was over a very nice dinner in New York with a little Chateauneuf de Pape on our table, and she said, you two should write a girl's guide to wine. And, of course, we thought that idea was brilliant. Putting it into reality was something a little different, but
we'd been doing a lot of research, But the problem is, not doing too much research so that you can still write about it. But we did. And our first book came out, which was The Saucy Sisters Guide to Wine, What Every Girl Should Know Before She Uncorks.
And then after that, we wrote a book called The Everything Wine Book. And then now we have a brand new book. It just came out last fall called The Saucy Sisters Guide to Wine, What Every Girl Should Know Before She Unscrews. And, times have changed. And as a matter of fact, with this book, it just came out last November, we set a world record for the most number of women unscrewing bottles of wine simultaneously. So we had a couple hundred women unscrewing the wines and then toasting and sipping. It was a great launch.
And yes, screw tops are fine, so don't be afraid to be serving wine out of screw tops. So, but we're here to talk. That's enough about us.
It's never enough about us.
Well, we could go on. Well, it was another 20 minutes of us, but because we got started late. No. Anyway, we're here to talk about chocolate and wine. Not one of the easiest combinations to do, but there are some basic guidelines and some tips that we're going to be giving you, and hopefully be able to take away so you can incorporate them into some of your menus.
And the first guideline is it is almost impossible to get people to agree. I mean, people have their personal preferences, and when you get any number of people in a room together with a certain pairing, some are going to love it, some are not going to think it works. But there are also people who, and this is our guideline number 2, who say, you know what, wine and chocolate just don't mix. Well, we're here to tell you we can find a way to mix wine with anything, including chocolate. And our only advice when you run into those people, serve them the chocolate separate from the wine.
What could be bad, right? Our third guideline is some people like the wine and the chocolate to complement each other. For instance, if you have a really sweet white wine, really sweet, then you would want the chocolate to be sweet. So the sweeter the chocolate, the sweeter the wine. If you have a light, delicate chocolate, then you want to have like a lighter wine, as opposed to maybe a deep, dark, flavorful chocolate. Then you want a big, bold, full-bodied wine to go with that.
And guideline number 4 is opposites attract. I mean, some people like the contrast, and this kind of match is really risky. But for those people who really enjoy putting together two opposites and seeing if they work, that's the kind of combination for that. And most critically is the last guideline, and that is...
I'm sorry. You forgot this one. The
last guideline.
Oh, okay.
We can argue over anything.
Yeah, we sure can. Okay, this one, that's right. This is not all about just chocolate. This is really, it goes into food preparation, how you're going to prepare the chocolate. Like if it's maybe chocolate and fruit, or maybe a pastry that just has chocolate as one of the ingredients. So that's going to affect which wine you're going to select to go with that chocolate dish.
And it's just like pairing other foods with wine. It's not always that particular ingredient, like let's say chicken, that you're pairing the wine with. It's the preparation. It's what it's being prepared with. And our solution, at least when it comes to entertaining and parties, is really kind of a mix and match. And what we really enjoy doing is, for a group, having a whole variety of chocolates and a whole variety of wines, and let the guests kind of mix and match and pick out their favorites. And I guarantee you, as many people who are in attendance, that's how many opinions you're going to get.
It is such a personal preference.
But we do have some suggestions here for you, and we do have some bookmarks that you can take with you, and they're just sort of general guidelines, and you can see that the matches we've made here really reflect both the complementary and the contrasting. But this is just sort of a cheat sheet that you can take with you.
But basically, as you look at this screen, the sweeter the chocolate gets, you're going from bittersweet all the way to a sweet white chocolate, the sweeter the wine you want to serve. Because the wine should usually be a little sweeter than the chocolate. Otherwise, the wine is going to be a little overpowered and overshadowed. So here you can see we have bittersweet chocolate, semi-sweet, paired with some dry, full-bodied reds, and then all the way down to your white chocolate, you have some dessert wine, some very sweet wines. You can have Moscatos, but basically dessert wines go very well with the white chocolate dishes. So the sweeter the chocolate, the sweeter the wine.
And we thought we'd make some specific recommendations for you. And when we do these, we are pairing chocolate, not chocolate desserts that may have other elements in there, but really the chocolate itself. And we're starting off with dark chocolate. And I have decided that Merlot would go really well with dark chocolate. Merlot is one of those really versatile kind of grapes that can be made into a wine all itself, or it can be blended with other wines. And I'm sure everybody here knows Merlot. I mean, if you've ever seen the movie Sideways, it was really all about Merlot.
If you haven't, it's been out for quite a while. Rent it because it is just a blast.
But the common denominator here, even though Merlot is not as tannic as, let's say, a Cabernet or a Syrah or a Zinfandel might be, it still has that tannin and structure to it, along with tannins that are in the chocolate. So in this case, it really is kind of a complementary pairing.
And I've gone with a pairing that has a little more contrast than going with the Merlot. I like a port with my dark chocolate. Of course, I like a port anytime. A port in any storm. Anyway, port is a fortified wine. What they do to make port, it's out of Portugal, and what they do is it's actually a still wine. What they do is they stop the fermentation process, and that makes the sugar level very high, and also the alcohol level very high. But it turns out where you have a sweet, very strong...
They also add more alcohol.
And they even add, oh, that's right. They even add more alcohol. They, add a brandy or some other fortified spirit. So it's really a strong drink, but with the dark chocolate, it is just a fabulous combination. But here you have like the bittersweet and semi-sweet chocolate, which is not overly sweet, but then you're pairing it with a little sweetness of the port. So a very, very nice combination. And there's different styles of ports out there, different levels of prices. There's some that are very reasonably priced, and I think you would have fun offering them to your clients because it's something a little different.
Well, just as an aside, Beverly and I once went to lunch with a friend, and we decided to have port after lunch. And what can I tell you? And we didn't know which port to have. So the waiter suggested that we try like 3 ports, and they were very differently priced. And I think he did that thinking that we would choose the most expensive port, and we were tasting them blind. So he came out with the 3 ports, and don't you know, we chose the cheapest one.
So a high price on a wine does not necessarily mean it's going to be the best.
And then we have milk chocolate, and I have to admit, this is a match I made out of personal preference because I love sparkling wines.
Barbara drinks her bubblies every day. Every day.
There are no secrets, I guess. No. And in our new book that we just mentioned, one of the things we point out is that there are 3 wines that are so food friendly that they can be paired with absolutely anything, and sparkling wine is one of them. So you can be pretty safe pairing it with everything. And when it comes to pairing it with chocolate, you really have a lot of versatility in terms of the sweetness. Sparkling wines can go from a really sweet, like an Asti or even a Moscato, a sparkling Moscato, all the way to a dry champagne, which is labeled Brut, B-R-U-T, and there's everything in between. But any one of those, because of the high acidity, is going to be very, very food friendly.
Barbara, before I get into my dessert wines, Barbara mentioned the 3 wines just so that you know that are so food friendly and they can go with any food at all. It's the champagne that she likes, or sparkling wine. A white is a dry Riesling, and a red is a Pinot Noir. So just we have those a little more detail about all of those in our book, but feel free, if you have a variety of foods that you're serving, feel free to serve any one of those 3 wines. But here with my milk chocolate, I like a dessert wine because milk chocolate is really sweet to me. It is one of my favorites, and dessert wines are very sweet. Dessert wines are considered, one is a late harvest wine, and what they do with that is they leave the grapes on the vine until late in the season, just as it says, so that the grapes actually shrivel a little bit and really contain lots and lots of sweetness. So those are called late harvest wines. They might be a Riesling, a Gewürztraminer, very common. And another one.
Oh, there are also ice wines, which they leave on the vines until they freeze. And then when they go to crush them to start fermentation, those ice crystals are separated from the rest of the juice. So it's not diluted at all. You have this very concentrated sweet juice. And by the way, both of these are expensive. You may have seen desserts that they come in half bottle size.
They come in those little bottles, and you're paying a price for it. But if you have a client who really wants to serve some sweet stuff and really has a sweet tooth, wants to serve dessert, then go with a dessert wine, or at least offer it, because the sweetness is just divine with the sweetness of the chocolate. This really is one of those perfect combinations.
Okay, we're into white chocolate. And I decided a Riesling would go really well. And a Riesling is another one of those really versatile grapes in that it can be extremely sweet. It can be like a late harvest Riesling, like Beverly was describing, or it can be a very dry wine, and everything in between. So you really have an option, whether you're choosing this for yourself or choosing this for clients, to try to evaluate how much sweetness they really like. And nowadays, it's pretty easy to pick out a dry versus a sweet Riesling. A lot of the American winemakers are labeling it right on the label, and it'll say dry Riesling or sweet Riesling.
And I kind of went out, not so much on a limb, but something that is really hot and really becoming trendy now here in the United States, and that's sherry. Sherry's made in the Jerez region of Spain. It comes in many varieties. It does, again, like the Riesling, it comes dry to sweet. But the sweet ones, you'll have like a pale cream sherry, very, very inexpensive, a medium sherry, and a brown sherry. So there's 3 different types of really sweet sherries out there, and I really like the pale sherry. Maybe it's because my grandmother used to drink it, and it was one of the first spirited drinks that I drank because it was sweet.
And how old were you?
You know how old I was. I think we drank it together. we weren't legal. I mean, our grandmother was pouring, wasn't she?
That's right. That's it.
Anyway, with the white chocolate, this sherry is just really special, and it'd be something really unusual and unique and trendy to offer your clients, and well priced, and it just goes terrifically with the white chocolate.
We thought we would give you another example of pairing chocolates, and this happened to be our personal part of our dinner from last Easter. And Beverly and her husband were having Easter dinner, and I said, well, I'll tell you what, I will bring dessert. So I decided to make a chocolate basket out of bittersweet chocolate, and then of course I got some strawberries covered in white chocolate. And Beverly lives about 9 miles away, so it was easy enough to transport over there. But Beverly got all excited about what she was going to pair with it.
Yeah, I was so excited because we had all the chocolate going on. We had the bittersweet, we had the white chocolate. So I thought, oh my gosh, this is just such a great wine to pair with the variety of sweetness of the chocolates, and that's a Zinfandel. Zinfandel is very popular. A lot of people thought it was native to California because it's grown there so much. But recently they did DNA testing on the grape and traced it back to Croatia. It's actually called the Primitivo grape. I mean, who knew that they did DNA testing on grapes? But they do. But the Zin, it's a very spicy grape. It's a varietal that is just very flavorful, and I thought it would be just perfect with Barbara's chocolate basket.
Now, here's the problem. It was a beautiful Easter day. And so driving the 9 miles over to Beverly's house, my husband and I got in the car, and I said, well, why don't I drive and you hold the basket, and why don't we put the top down? So as we got closer and closer to Beverly's house, the situation got more dismal and more dismal. And it was a disaster, because when we got there, that's the way it turned up.
Well, it was really awful because her husband also had chocolate all over him. But it was okay. Nothing can be wrong if you have a bottle of wine, around. So we immediately opened up the Zin, started tasting it, and then dug into the chocolate with our hands. And hey, it was just fine, and it was a good match.
And right after we leave here, we're going over to the book signing area to sign that new book. And we do have a trailer for it online that you can go take a look at. It's kind of zany. But we
can see it on our website, and this is also our cell number. We will be here through the rest of today. We have to get back to Nashville tomorrow, but feel free to take our number down, call us with any questions, or send us an email, and we would just love to hear from you. And also now, if you'd like, just to take any questions. Mm-hmm.